Hello and welcome to the Doctor Who Marathon. I'm your host McEdam, and today we're going to be talking about the return of Doctor Mysterio, the 2016 Christmas special written by Stephen Moffat and is directed by Ed Balachetti. I've completely butchered that name, I do apologise. This was actually the second Christmas in a row for Doctor Who. There was no series in between this and the previous episode, the Husbands of River Song. Between that, however, we did have the series Class, which I am going through in the marathon. I've talked about 2 episodes so far in the marathon, and that's that's something I'm continuing on with that. This would be Doctor Who's first introduction into superhero fiction. Doctor Who is a franchise which has tackled many other franchises: romance, opera, sci-fi, horror, both like in a Hammer sense and in a more traditional sense. A western, a samurai thriller, a detective, a noir. Doctor Who has been lots of things, but it's never been a traditional hero, a traditional superhero at this point, mainly because the Doctor doesn't really fit the general conventions of a superhero. Yeah, he uses his brain, but he doesn't have any more superpowers, mainly with regard to his massive brain, and of course his ability to regenerate. But he doesn't have a super suit, and also, as well, he does not kill. That's one of his main things. He doesn't use violence in most capacities. He's not a action character. The solution to this is to bring in a guest character. The Ghost, the new superhero for Doctor Who, a Superman-inspired character. Very interesting way to go forth that. And I remember that when the story was being advertised and when the story was being talked about prior to the release of this episode, it was actually quite controversial. The superhero genre, as of from 2008 and up to this very day, is massive. When this story came out, Civil War and Doctor Strange, actually I think Doctor Strange and I'm trying to think what else came out in 2016. I want to say Batman v Superman came out in 2016. I could be wrong on that front. But essentially, the superhero genre in terms of movies were absolutely big. But it's also known for its big cliches and its, silliness. And the idea of Doctor Who doing a superhero drama was actually something I thought was below the Doctor Who franchise. Something that's not very intelligible for a Doctor Who story, if that makes any sense. So a lot of people, regards to Doctor Who on this story were pretty low. I remember going into this and not really being excited about it. I thought the concept was silly and certain other details. For example, Matt Lucas comes back as the character Nardole, now officially a companion. A one-off character from the previous episode is now returning as a main character. It's really strange, really bizarre, and Matt Lucas didn't seem to fit the companion role. And that decision just seemed very odd. It seemed very out of touch with what Doctor Who was and should have been at that time. But, yeah, and also as well, the Stephen Moffat era Christmas specials haven't been known to be really great. Majority of them just downright are some of the worst episodes of Doctor Who. The last episode, The Husbands of River Song, had some really great moments, but I think for the majority kind of fell flat. So I wasn't really too much excited for this. Now, before we get into the episode itself, of course, I actually own the physical copy of this. I actually own this on DVD. Don't ask me why I own specifically this one. I think this is the only proper Peter Capaldi story as I own this at the moment, which is really strange. Comes with extras, bonus features, Doctor Who Extra, Return of Doctor Mysterio, and The Doctor, a New Kind of Hero. But as always, as my long-term viewers might be aware, I print DVD covers out to match it up with the classic Doctor Who series because I'm an utter nerd. So let's put these together and let's see what it looks like on my shelf. 1, 2, 3. There you go. That's what it looks like on my shelf. This is by Christopher, Doctor Who DVD covers. Absolutely stunning work. I really like that cover. That's the spine, if anyone is interested. With Peter Capaldi's face. Yeah, Peter Capaldi. Peter Capaldi. I just remembered I do actually own Deep Breath. I don't know why I completely forgot I owned that. So yeah, I do. This is not the only main. This is an odd one I have in my collection, and then that's the back for any one of those who are interested. So there you go. Now the story starts off actually a small scene that actually takes place prior to the Husbands of River Song from the Doctor's perspective. He basically meets this young boy, and he's showing them this like his amazing adventure of like trying to sort out the time fluctuation in New York or something, and he gets introduced to this kid, and he sees that he's ill. And there's some really fun interactions with Peter Capaldi here. There's a great bit where he's looking at his comics, and you see he's actually reading Superman, and he's like he's only now kind of clicking together that Superman and Clark Kent are the same person. And I really like that interaction. There's this really warmth Capaldi into this story, especially with his interaction with the kid and what happens to him later on. But anyway, what happens in the story prior to the credit sequence is that the Doctor gives him this crystal, this ultimate crystal, one of the 5 ultimate crystals in the universe, and essentially it allows you to read your mind. It grants your wishes, essentially. The kid accidentally swallows it thinking it's a pill, because the Doctor gives him that and a glass of water to help him with his cough. A glass of water, and the kid accidentally mistook the gem for medicine. This gave the kid superhuman abilities, the ability to fly, the ability of super strength, as well as X-ray vision, as we say later throughout the episode. When we cut back into the episode after the credits, we essentially learn of this character, Lucy, played by Chartry Wakefield. I believe that's how you pronounce her name. She's basically the Lois Lane parody, the Lois Lane inspired character in this story, who is investigating this organization. I can't remember what the organization is called. Doesn't say it on the back, or at least not on the printed one anyway. But the organization is run by a character called Mr. Brooke, played by Tomwan Eden. I believe that's how I pronounce his name. I'm really bad at pronouncing names. I do apologize. And slowly she gets introduced. Lucy gets introduced to the Doctor and Nardole, and right off the bat, the Nardole in this story and his interactions with the Doctor. Essentially, really, we learn that the Doctor rebuilt him a android body. So he looks exactly the same before he was decapitated and taken by King Hydroflax's body. But there's this button heads relationship between the Doctor and Nardole that really just shines throughout this episode. And it's around about this time in the narrative that we get to learn that Mr. Brooke is actually part of this alien organization, which we've actually seen in the prior episodes, the Husbands of River Song. The Winters of... I can't remember their name, but they have this scar on their heads, and they open it up, and they have this like a container, and they can store things, as well as they put brains in jar. We get to basically see more of them. It is really strange to have 2 stories back to back with these villains. In the first one, they were kind of just extra villains, and now here they were kind of put to the focus. But I feel like Stephen Moffat, he saw the idea of an alien race that splits their head open, maybe even a chameleon-like alien species, like a body snatchers inspired escapade, and thought it would be a really cool idea to mix that up with a superhero genre. It works surprisingly well, and despite the fact that the villains are kind of bland in the sense of there's not much personality to them, their design, their look, when their heads are open, the way they're so clichédly villainous, kind of really just fits with the whole feel of the story. This also, again, brings us to the character of Grant, the kid that we met earlier. which is now going by the superhero the Ghost. Now, here is now is where it gets really interesting. The Ghost is the older Ghost, the older Grant, is played by Justin Chatwin. That might not be a name that most people know. However, as somebody who grew up as a kid in the 2000s, and for those of you who do know who he is, probably know where I'm going with this, he played Goku in the Dragon Ball Z movie Dragon Ball Evolution, a film which was notoriously bad, a film I've actually seen in the cinema. I saw it when it came out. I actually remember enjoying it when I was there. But the more I think about it, it is a really, really awful film, and I don't wish anybody to witness Dragon Ball Z like that. But yeah, they got this guy who the only thing I seen him in was Goku. Like, he was Goku. He was the live action Goku in a Doctor Who episode, and he's like a main character as well. He's essentially the surrogate companion in this story as the Doctor quickly works out who he is. But the Doctor also takes his kind of mentor, not really, but like the Doctor's trying to talk him out of this superhero life, because outside of his life as the Ghost, Grant actually is a male nanny, and specifically he's the nanny to the baby of Lucy, and he has this kind of Superman relationship with her where she is kind of fascinated with the superhero persona, but doesn't really see much of the Grant persona throughout the story, and that plays into the really cliched aspects of the story. Now, the story does tackle a lot of cliched superhero moments, but I feel like the story actually takes a lot of great fun with it. It's a great humorous story. There's a great moment where Lucy's trying to figure out try to get the Doctor, who they're all in her apartment at the moment. She worked out that the Doctor knows who the Ghost is, and the Doctor's just like looking at Grant, and Grant's trying to come up with all of these ways. He's like flying out. He comes back and he's soaking wet after he's having some sort of escapade with the Ghost business. He calls on the phone and he's like, the Ghost, you can have an interview with me as long as you don't give me any questions about my true identity. And just as she walks into the actual room that they're in the kitchen, in the flat, and then he has to hide the fact that he's on the phone. There's a lot of great humor in this story, and this all boils down to a really fantastic scene, the interrogation scene. My God, I've never laughed so hard at a interrogation scene in Doctor Who since the Tom Baker era. We are talking that level of great comedy. I tell you what, I won't even spoil what actually happens in it, but yeah, it was surprisingly good, and I love how it actually works on the Doctor as well. It's just so. There's so many great moments in this. I enjoyed a Stephen Moffat Christmas special. What the hell is going on? I don't know. I might just leave it like that, because the idea that this story was really good. The story was really inspiring in terms that, it wasn't really hitting a high bar. It wasn't trying to do anything spectacular, but Stephen Moffat wanted to tackle the superhero genre. He wanted to make his own spin on it, mainly a parody of sorts, maybe it is a superhero. It is a superhero first, and like a parody and taking the mick out of it second, very similar to, say, the first Deadpool movie. But it's just so much fun, and it nailed what I thought of Nardole, and I actually got excited to see him when I heard he would actually return for Series 10. This blew my mind. This absolutely blew my mind. I think this was actually the first Doctor Who story that I didn't watch on the day, to the point I didn't actually intend to watch it on the day. I know a few episodes I have missed. I'm trying to think. One David Tennant, one and a few, and one Matt Smith one I didn't watch on the day. This one I wasn't excited for, so I kind of I was like, I'll give it a day or two. I got Christmas coming around, and when I watched it, I was surprisingly blown away. And yeah, it's nothing amazing. I doubt if I recommended it to people, a lot of people would really find it all that amazing. They might enjoy it, but they might find it, just an okay episode. But for me personally, there's just something here that scratched that itch that I had. It was something that was, it was so enjoyable. It was so fun. That this is actually a story I do actually, one of the Capaldi stories, I actually rewatch a few times. It's just a great fun, a great enjoyment. The dynamic between Peter Capaldi, Matt Lucas, Justin Chadwin, and Charlie Wakefield. Again, I'm completely butchering her name. I do apologise. And some really fun, if a bit forgettable, villains makes the story worth watching. Also, New York in this story feels like New York. You feel the budget put into this episode for Doctor Who. It was very surprising to watch. There's also a reference to Spider-Man, the pizza place. I believe it's a Spider-Man reference. There's a pizza place on the road, just across from Lucy's apartment, and it's the pizza from Spider-Man 2. So that's a cool reference. There's a lot of fun references to other superheroes and the superhero genres, especially DC and Marvel. So yeah, I personally say if you're a fan of a superhero genre, if you want a really good, light-hearted adventure, The Return of Dr. Mysterio is a surprisingly good adventure. And I actually highly recommend it. It might not blow you away as it did with me. I doubt it hasn't broken any new ground, essentially. But it's just the fact it was so enjoyable after a few stories of just pure pain. Like you have Hellbent, then you go to the weddings, the husband, sorry, rid of the song, and then you go to this. Whoosh, absolutely mental. Absolutely mental. Stephen Moffat was clearly getting his mojo back. And hopefully, fingers crossed, this was a sign that his last outing, his last series, would nail it on the head. But that's we will find out soon. So, that is The Return of Dr. Mysterio. So, join me next time where we return to class as a creature feeds on the kids' past, memories, nightmares, as some of the characters start seeing past lives of family members and loved ones. So join me next time for Night Visiting, and I'll see you next time on the Doctor Who Marathon. Ta-da!